People say, oh, but like Nalgene bottles are way more resilient and strong, and so you're not gonna break it. And those plastic bottles you could easily break. Yes, it is true that a Nalgene bottle is much stronger. That part of the argument is true, but the part that's false is that what's going on, internet backpacking nerds like myself? Welcome to the channel. Be sure to subscribe because today we're gonna be talking about ultralight backpacking, a very, very fun subject that definitely never rustles any backpacking jimmies whatsoever. We're gonna be talking about items that I have given up on in order to be one of these very cool and prestigious, super prestigious ultralight backpackers. Huge thanks to Drink Element for sponsoring this video. I will have more on that in a second, but the first thing that I want to start with before I get into the list here is that none of these items are just like really like obvious, like super heavy items that you need to just like get rid of to save weight. A lot of these items are just gonna save like a little bit of weight. And so if you're new to ultralight backpacking, or if you despise ultralight backpacking, as surely some people in the comments will be doing, I just wanna be clear, like every ounce counts. That's the philosophy here. So even though some of these items might just save you a little bit of weight, that adds up over time. And before you know it, you're like super cool ultralight backpacker like Jupiter, and you're you know just raking in thousands of views on YouTube and hiking ridiculous trails in like 3 days or whatever the hell he does. Anyways, item number one that I have given up on, backpacking gear item number one that I've given up on to go ultralight, and this is gonna break some of your hearts, but it's camp shoes. And believe me, this is a tough one to give up because it took me a long time to give up camp shoes. In fact, I even gave them up and then rebought them before. And I've only very recently have I finally come to terms with not bringing camp shoes. So let me explain. I'd say camp shoes are pretty much a beginner backpacker staple. And I'm not gonna sit here and say like camp shoes suck and that they're completely pointless. Like we all like to take off our shoes at the end of a long day of hiking, especially if our feet are wet. Like wet feet sucks, even more than this channel. Believe me, I understand why people want camp shoes. However, you can ditch them. And this is especially true if you're hiking in trail runners, which is something I've talked about in lots of other videos. I'm not gonna go into that, but I've found if I'm hiking in trail runners, at the end of the day, I don't really need camp shoes or want them as badly because I can just like, loosen up my trail runners, loosen up the laces. Obviously, what other part of the shoe would you loosen? Sometimes I even like just take off my socks and I just slip on, the trail runners, tie a little knot at the top, keep them nice and loose. And you've basically got your own pair of camp shoes that double as your actual shoes because those are your actual shoes. Are they as comfortable as camp shoes? Well, great question. You're asking great questions, Kyle, because I'm asking the Anyways, no, yes, I guess sometimes is the answer, sometimes, but are they like significantly less comfortable? No, not really, and there's actually an added benefit to not using camp shoes that I very seldom hear folks talk about on YouTube. If you're using like Crocs, then this might not be an issue as your camp shoes, that is, but if you're using flip-flops, which are a very popular camp shoe, or if you're using another like open-toed or very like thin material that doesn't protect your feet at all, like I always did before I gave up the camp shoes, you could hurt your feet just walking around camp. I know that sounds like kind of like paranoid or ridiculous or whatever, but it's true. Like if you're just walking around camp, especially if you're tired at the end of a long day of hiking, dude, you could step on like a rock or I guess, or like a pokey stick, or you could just step wrong, you could trip. I used to trip and I never fell, but I used to like stumble all the time wearing my flip-flops when I was tired at the end of a day, and you could hurt your feet. So having trail runners on as your camp shoes, even if they're like a little bit looser, I think has actually an added benefit, not only the weight savings, but also just, you're gonna wear a shoe that's protecting your feet a little bit more. If you're on like a thru hike, and you would feel like a real doink if you hurt your feet and had to stop your thru hike while you were just walking around camp in your camp shoes. I'm gonna get into item number two in just a second here, but first let me say a huge thank you to this video's sponsor, Drink Element. These guys are freaking awesome. Let me tell you all about them. Now, staying hydrated while you're hiking on the trail, that's obviously like super important. And one of the big reasons why it's so hard is because very often you get sick of the water that you're drinking. Now, it goes without saying, when you're backpacking, you're drinking out of these like super fresh awesome water sources. I love that. But when that's all you're drinking for days on end, it can get a little bit old sometimes. So it's a great idea to grab some Element Electrolyte drink mix. You see this right here? This one right here is the citrus salt. When you're sweating a lot, it can lead to muscle cramps. It can lead to weakness, fatigue, and so you really want to be sure to replace those electrolytes. Another thing that's really cool about Drink Element is that they have like crazy awesome flavors that I've never even heard of. I mean, they do have your standard flavors, your raspberry salt, your citrus salt, like I said, there's an orange salt in there, but they also have these like super creative, fun flavors like this one, lemon habanero, mango chili, that's another one. Those of you that watch this channel a lot know that I really don't do very many sponsorships, and I really like this product, so that's why I'm doing it. But I also really like that they are gonna freaking hook it up for you guys. If you visit the link in the description, you can get a free sample pack. It's 8 different flavors. You only have to pay for shipping. If you're in the US, I think it's like $5. I really appreciated that they were willing to do that for you guys. drinklmnt.com/KyleHatesHiking. Go show them some love. Guys, when you support sponsors of this channel, you are also supporting this channel. So go check them out, go get your free samples. Anyway, let's get on to item number 2, a mug/cup. And now to be clear, I'm not talking about my pot. I still carry a pot. I wanna make a joke about pot, but I don't know if I can do that in a sponsored, do you think I don't know. Anyways, I'm talking about like a separate from your mug cup, you know. Wait, no. I'm talking about carrying like a cup or mug like other than your pot, like something to drink out of while you eat out of your, you know, that's how you eat. Eat out of your pot. I don't do that, and you shouldn't either. Well, you can actually, but if you're trying to go ultralight, maybe consider not doing it. And I'll tell you why I've given up on it, because you might think, Kyle, what am I gonna drink out of, right? And the short answer is your pot, but the long answer is a little bit more complicated. So let's just take a scenario. For instance, let's say you're cooking up a meal and you know you're doing that in your pot, obviously, but you also want to have a nice cup of joe in the morning or some tea at night. But you're like, how am I supposed to do those two things when I only have one pot? So I want to carry a cup so I can, no. You can work around this, folks, okay? Let's take breakfast, for instance. A lot of people like to make like oatmeal, make some nice morning oats. It's a great way to start your day. You're like, I also want to drink my coffee, so how do I do that and eat the oats? You're gonna get a freezer bag, or even better, you're gonna buy a really overpriced dehydrated meal that comes with its own freezer bag. But if you get a freezer bag, you can cook your oats in there, and then you can drink your coffee out of your mug. And it's actually pretty easy, because you can boil the water for the oats and the coffee at the same time, and then just pour the water in for the oats, and then you're left with the hot water in your mug for your coffee. Very basic. Do I need to explain this? Probably not. What about dinner? Let's say you want to make some nice tea to end your day, some nice, you know, a little sleepy time tea. What the hell am I talking about? How do you work that out? Because you need to use your pot well, but here's how you do it. You could do the same thing I just mentioned. Maybe you have a freezer bag for your dinner, or you could just cook your dinner in your pot and then make your tea afterwards. Is that a little bit more annoying? Absolutely yes. But we don't talk about that. I feel like that wasn't a very compelling argument. Basically, my point is you can work around it, okay? You don't need the mug, use your pot instead. This next gear item that I gave up for ultralight is, and you're gonna call me, you might think I'm a little crazy for this one, but a framed backpack. There is a caveat with this one, because you really shouldn't get a frameless backpack unless the rest of your base weight is pretty light. Like if you have like really heavy gear, like you don't wanna like have a frameless backpack be the first thing you replace in order to go ultralight. You really kind of have to wait, because if you have too much gear in a frameless pack, you're gonna have a bad time. But this is an important one, because you can save a lot of weight by getting a frameless backpack. I mean, just think about it, right? It's a frame like that, like it's gonna weigh a lot, okay? And so once I had a lightweight enough base weight, I was able to upgrade to a frameless pack. The ULA CDT is the one I've been using for years now. A lot of you guys know that if you've seen any of my other gear videos. And you might think, okay, well, if it doesn't have a frame, isn't that gonna be super uncomfortable? Like there's not gonna be any structure, you know, on your back or whatever. I could do a whole nother video on this. I probably should at some point, but you do have to be a little bit deliberate about the way you pack a frameless backpack. You wanna make sure you kind of fill the space. And I even like to take my sleeping pad and kind of fold it and use it as like a frame that goes up against my back. Of course, it's not as rigid as like a hard frame, but it still gets the job done. So maybe this one isn't like applicable, is that a, yeah, maybe this one doesn't apply to all of you guys, but when I was thinking about this list, as I was putting together this list, getting a frameless backpack and ditching my big old framed backpack was a really important step that I took on my journey to become an ultralight jerk. And I thought I had to mention that one. Let's go into item, the next one. I don't remember the number, but it's this number. Going back to the subject of cooking materials and gear, this next item that I have ditched for ultralight is a soap / sponge for cleaning my pot. I am no hygiene expert, so maybe this is, I'm pretty sure this is fine because I've been doing it for a long time, and a lot of other backpackers anyways do this. I don't use like any sort of cleaning materials to clean my pot out. Of course, if you're freezer bag cooking or if you're buying those dehydrated meals, it doesn't really matter that much because you're just, you're not cooking in your pot, but I still do make a lot of meals where I actually cook inside of my pot and eat out of my pot and drink my tea later, as we established. And when I'm done doing this, I don't have a sponge or even like a little scrubby or any soap to clean this pot out. What I do is, in accordance with Leave No Trace, I put some water inside of my pot, and then I use this little bugger right here, this little guy. You just kind of, you do that, you clean it out, you get all the grime off the side of your pot, and then you go very far away from your campsite, very far away from any river or water source, away from everybody else, and then you broadcast all the water out of your pots. Of course, you want to make sure there's no food scraps left in there either, just like the grime and residue from your meal or whatever. No, don't just be chucking food everywhere. I just do that, and my pot is clean. And I mean that sincerely. I've been doing this for years, never had any issues. Is it kind of a pain to like scrub your pot with your finger? Is it a little bit grimy? Yeah, but use some hand sanitizer beforehand and it gets the job. People always complain about like, oh, like I don't want to clean my pot or whatever. It's not that big a deal, okay? It takes 30 seconds if you do it right. The worst part is getting your finger a little bit like gross, and if it's cold out, the water is kind of cold on your, it's not that big a deal, that's what I'm saying. And so the extra weight of like a scrubby or especially soap, it's just not, in my opinion, it's just not worth it. I do know some people who, like Flossie, for instance, still takes like a little scrubby for his pot, but you really don't need to be taking soap. Plus, it's probably not great for the environment. I know they have like biodegradable soap or whatever, but I don't know. You probably shouldn't be using soap out there. I will leave that for somebody else to discuss. But yeah, ditch the soap, guys. Ditch the scrubby. You don't need it. And okay, let's get into the big one here. Nalgenes. You don't need, in my opinion, once again, I ditched the Nalgene a long time ago in order to go ultralight. Now I know there's gonna be somebody who inevitably comments this because they have commented it in other videos when I've mentioned this. Yes, plastic bottles, bad for the environment, I'll let somebody else give you that whole spiel, but I'm not gonna talk about that. I'm here to talk about weight savings. And the fact of the matter is, Nalgenes, dude, they weigh way too much. For years now, I've been using smart water bottles or those, what are they, Life Water bottles, like, you know what I'm talking about. Like, I've been using those, and for a few different reasons, in addition to the weight savings. I mean, first of all, yes, like those are way lighter than a Nalgene. That's the whole point I'm trying to make here. Here's the weight differences. There's other things too. First of all, Sawyer squeeze filter that I like to use, that screws right onto these bottles. You just put that sucker on there, you squeeze in your water, it's a great time, and honestly, it's way more convenient than filtering into a Nalgene bottle. I also like the shape of them. Like, they just fit very well into the side water bottle pocket on my backpack, to the point where I can grab them without having to take my pack off, because that sucks. If you have like a Nalgene, it could be like buried deep in that pocket there. You can't even reach it. I mean, maybe you can. It really depends on your backpack and stuff, but for a lot of backpacks, you can't. And it sucks that every time you want to drink, I just talk about hydration with the element stuff. Like, if you're not able to easily access your water bottle, then you're not going to drink as much, and you're going to get dehydrated, and you're going to quit backpacking, and then you're going to unsubscribe. And we don't, especially me, I don't want that. And so let me take a second to address, other than the plastic waste argument, which is a valid one, the second most common argument against using a plastic smart water bottle and for using a Nalgene. People will comment, I've gotten this repeatedly in another video where I've talked about this. People say, oh, but like Nalgene bottles are way more resilient and strong, and so you're not gonna break it. And those plastic bottles, you could easily break one of those plastic bottles. Yes, it is true that a Nalgene bottle is much stronger. I mean, you could probably like kill a freaking mouse in a shelter with one of those things. Like, they're very strong. That part of the argument is true, but the part that's false is that a plastic smart water bottle isn't strong. Guys, I've hiked thousands of miles with these things, literally, not with the same bottle, obviously, but like, I've never, like, has anybody, maybe someone has, comment if this has happened to you. I've never had a plastic smart water bottle break. Like, it's never happened. I've dropped them. I've hit my friends over the face with them all the time. I've never had one break. I think the biggest issue potentially is that you could lose the bottle cap to one, and that makes it kind of useless. I do carry an extra bottle cap for that reason, but I've never actually lost one. It's really not that big a deal, and they're not breaking, like they're not puncturing, and like, I don't know what the hell, what are you doing with your freaking water bottles, people, if you're breaking them? So I think that argument that the durability of Nalgene's makes them like superior, I think that's kind of bogus. Let me know what you guys think though, if you've ever had one of these bottles break. I don't know, I'm sure it must have happened to somebody, right? Like, comment if that happened to you. Make sure you guys subscribe to this channel. If you're just tuning in for the first time, hit that notification bell, leave a comment, leave a like, all that good stuff. Once again, thank you to Element for sponsoring this video. They are awesome. Go hit that link in the description, and that's gonna do it. Let's go. On to your next video. Hopefully it's one of mine. See ya.